Namaskar and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are back again. Here we have with us Mr. Robert Fox, who is a early childhood education expert. When you are born into the world where you don't fit in, it's because you were born to help create a new one. Our guest for tonight is a young man from Cambridge, United Kingdom. He is Robert Fox, fondly known as Rob Fox by his friends and colleagues. The above lines are perfect for him. He has really created a niche for himself in the world of early childhood education. At the age of 15, he decided to volunteer at his local village school after his secondary school had finished for the summer break. He felt sure it would kill some time and gain him some experience. After 2 weeks, he was inspired by the young learners. His passion for early years education got a spark. The journey of male practitioners isn't an easy road to follow, especially if you are not naturally academic. Following a vocational early years journey, completing 3 years at college, the route to school based teacher training was often blocked by a perceived lack of real academic qualifications. Employment in nursery settings in what often seen as general childcare by many is often the only entry route. Whilst the nursery setting provided quality care, the recognition of play and the educational benefits of outside learning was often undervalued. To be then seriously in the world of education, Robert had a little option but to accept that he had an upside down we have an upside down education with all the emphasis on the importance of high school and university qualifications. So no matter how passionate he was in his pedagogy, without the badge, his value experience in the formative early years education was often discounted. His desire to become an early childhood educator and an expert took him to the university to pursue his foundation degree and 8 years of practice. He then completed his BA honors. He achieved this with the support of the then employer, an independent school in Cambridge, where he supported a reception class while studying as an early years teaching assistant. Robert then complemented his knowledge and practical experience by completing Ofsted inspector training. This provided an insight into the regulatory requirements, linking the practical and professional knowledge. He has been to different countries. His passion and selfless drive made him collaborate with early years conferences in Iceland, Canada, even spending a term in an Italian school to experience Italy's education system. He has founded and created a worldwide network of early years professionals known as the Early Childhood UK, a brand that is recognized by many professionals throughout the globe and is a place where he regularly blogs and shares creative ideas for early childhood teaching pedagogy and others. The group continues to grow and has become a central place for sharing his discussion and will see expansion into new international market in 2021. Robert supports early years communities via experiences and expertise. He has been training and advising the early year settings based on developmental appropriate practices. Let's welcome Mr. Robert Fox. Good
Namaste,
evening, Robert.
Reena.
How are you?
Namaste. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation with you this evening.
You're most welcome. All of us have been discussing about pandemic and education. All my shows have had the same thing, pandemic and education. That is, pandemic versus education, hope to cope up and normalize. Now, you being in UK, You have experienced pandemic. You have experienced everything that has been there in education and the lockdown and everything. I would request you to share your insight and your vision for it. The topic is divided into three parts: pandemic versus education, second, hope to cope up, and the third, normalizing it.
Pandemic. Pandemic. It's scary. And it feels that we don't know what's happening next. The uneasiness, the not sure what's going to happen, the constant bombardment by the media, the constant pings on your cell phone, your email device, how many daily death rates. And at the moment, I am sending my sincere prayers to the people of India during this hard time for you all. And I'm so thankful that Rena has allowed me to talk with you today. Hope. We have hope for what's been happening. As an early educator, we go in with clear lens. We need to look after ourselves. But this is difficult. During a pandemic, we've been working long hours. I know I have as well. I've been supporting pandemic multiple families of key workers with childcare requirements during this pandemic and working for 60 to 70 hours a day. 60 to 70 hours a week, even, not a day. So what I say here is we need to look at self-care. We need to look at what we can do. What we can do in the present moment and not what we can't. You know, we are naturally social human beings. We connect. I'm from a big Irish family. We haven't seen each other like many people around the world. We haven't been able to gather for long periods of time now. And I guess it's a new, I hate to term it the new norm. Dealing with training face-to-face. I was chatting to some educators the other day in Nigeria, and I was due to be in Lagos to deliver some training. And it's having these conversations face-to-face rather through a computer screen, and really not losing sight of that human connection, that human touch, the, you know, human passion and interaction in everything we do. Of recent, the restrictions are lifting here, but we don't know what's ahead. We've got to embrace the present. We've got to live with what's in our control. Whether tomorrow opportunities change, and they will. Whether we are allowed to go out and see family. I was fortunate the other day, we were able to go and see a family member who I hadn't seen for a while because he was shielding. Family connection, bringing it together. The children, how are they feeling? Are children experiencing big emotions? Is your natural outgoing child more reserved? Are they regressing? Is there a change in their pattern of behavior? Are they really struggling? They are. Unturned sides of whether they may be achieving, they may have reached their developmental milestones, but they may be taking a step back. They may not be able to use a pair of scissors. They may not be able to, if they were potty trained and young toddler, they may be regressing and still in diapers. Finding that present. Remember, we need to flip the narrative now to normalize what we're doing. And I guess my biggest advice being from what I've been telling you so far is we need to acknowledge the process of learning. We do not need to drive an end product of learning that is far above these children's own expectations. This has been a traumatic time for us. As educators, we need to be more informed of our practice. As educators, we need to be more empathetic to the changing needs of the children, but also to the staff that we work with, our co-teachers, and work in collaboration cohesively. Listening is a skill that comes from the heart and the soul of practice. Listening intrinsically means listening with your ears, your heart, your mind, listening to the ideas that allow children to flourish for the best possible opportunities moving forward. We are the change makers. We're so fortunate in this profession that we can go out each day and embrace it with every opportunity. Going back on a previous point, we have what we have. It's time to portray gratitude in all our actions, seek faith in the process. And I don't mean this from a religious perspective, I mean this from an in general perspective. We need to bring about positive change for these children, but become more attuned to the changing needs of our children moving forward.
Daddy, look there.
What we have been looking at is that education system, right? We have come from physical to virtual, right? And now there are kids who have started learning virtually, who started going to school virtually. So what do you think, in fact, what would be your suggestion or your advice to the kindergarten teachers, to the teachers who are handling these kids virtually, so that learning becomes quite interactive and it is not just like another day spent?
I guess it's key, Rena, to look at, the routine and how adaptable is our routine to change? How is it relevant for a child to be sat on a computer screen for a long period of time and maintain conversation for a period of time? If we're doing online, I remember doing online circle times during a few months back during the pandemic, and I know you guys are doing that now. But what is the relevance of what we're doing? I always have a 2-year-old sitting on my shoulder questioning why. Why are we doing this? What is the point? We need to look at that actually. What is the point in what we're doing with our children? Is it to fill a gap in time? Are we giving them something that is an end product? Are we giving them something that is so prescriptive that their creativity is being dumbed down? Are we setting up a provocation to learning? Are we giving children the opportunity to expand their ideas? Are we being a creative online virtual presence? Are we posing questions to them that are open-ended? Are we looking at our language? How are we modeling our language for these children moving forward?
Like what we discussed earlier was that the sessions need to be interactive. The more interactive they are, the more fruitful the lessons are. Because kids, they love interaction. So what would you suggest the teachers to do with their sessions while they are teaching? Like, what kind of lessons should they pick up? Because generally what the teachers have been doing is they are taking up the phonics, they are taking up phonics rhymes, They are taking up number rhymes. So, how effective can that be for children who are still, who are still not prepared to enter the school, but they have entered the virtual schools?
It's a very tricky question to answer, but in a short term, I think making these experiences as practical as possible when you are delivering a phonics session. Are we concentrating on A to Z, or are we concentrating on the correct pronunciation over the screen? Are we articulating in the language we use? Are we building up the letter formation for these children? Because that aside is also an important aspect. Are we using practical examples in their day? So for example, are we using sand? Are we using flour? Are we allowing children to make marks of letter formation? Are we letting them make that initial mark making that happens when they're 2 years old or even younger? Are we giving them that freedom to be creative? Are we promoting curiosity, awe, and wonder in our discovery of learning, our exploration, our knowledge? Are we giving them that choice? Are we saying, today, could we explore letters with paint? Are we giving them something that is prescriptive, that the outcome is there for the child, for the teacher to see, but not the child may grasp it in that very moment, but it doesn't portray the process. So teachers, what I say to you is upskill yourself, look outside the box, think outside the box, and think about different practical activities that are going to engage your children to really show how they form the letters. And that is the formation of learning. Learning evolves through their own ideas and how they do it for themselves. I hope I've answered your question, Rena.
Yeah, because what is happening is they are basically just concentrating that anyhow the child should start writing. It's not the time when they can just with actions they can teach them. They need to be more practical in teaching them letters.
And this is the key. We think we can give one solution to the problem, but really the point is we have children of multiple intelligences. We have different children at different stages. We have different developmental milestones that they have reached within that time, and that's okay. Some children are going to be a kinesthetic learner. They learn through doing. Some are auditory learners. We need to look at the way we are teaching and not pitching it at the middle ground. We need to recognize the needs of each and every single one of our learners to realize what type of learners are they? How do they learn? But most importantly, if you're co-teaching with a co-teacher or co-colleague, how do they learn? And actually, by looking at that in the concepts of the classroom, it's helped to support me in practice, and it's made me a better teacher because I'm able to really tune in to the changing needs of our children as well as their interests and provide detailed observations to move them forward.
Rob, you've been a great supporter of Reggio Emilia, right? And that is the concept which nearly even I also support that. So what would you suggest, not only in the kindergarten but in the formative years, that's grade 1 and grade 2, could that be used there also or not? Because there are certain teachers who would love to know that. I and you, we know about it, but not everybody.
I'm going to go back to the 100 languages. I want to read today the 100 languages of children. These children that we look after, we care to educate. Our ages, we have people who work with babies on here. We have people that work with 6 and 7 year olds. We have people who work with maybe even older children. And actually, The 100 Languages of Children is a poem written in Reggio Emilia by Loris Malaguzzi, who is the co-founder of the Reggio Emilia approach. And I want to read this to you. Once I found this, it gave me power to empower children's needs and interests and competencies in their theories and their own perspectives and their ideas. And actually, it's much better. I believe that we need to make a change for curriculum that is relevant for these children, whatever age they may be. And this can include the oldest child of 17 or even 15 growing up. We can believe in their capabilities. We can believe that they are one with their own ideas and that they are unique in everything that they do and say, and that is okay. I remember for sure in my own experiences as an educator growing up, I found it hard, and the reason why I set up my Active Childhood platform is because my pedagogy and perspectives did not fit in. I was one of those out-of-the-box thinkers that I'm so thankful that I gave myself to social media and set up this presence, because I'm able to verbalize, and so many people don't. So many people are trapped in their thoughts and struggles, and so are our children. I want to take you back to the 100 Languages of Children. I'm just finding it now. I have this up as a reminder to me daily of the work that happened there, but also, okay, the 100 Languages of Children. No way the 100 is there. The child is made up of 100. The child has 100 languages, 100 hands, 100 thoughts, 100 ways of thinking, of playing, of speaking. 100, always 100 ways of listening, of marveling, of loving. 100 joys for singing and understanding. 100 worlds to discover. 100 worlds to invent. 100 worlds to dream. The child has 100 languages. And 100 more. But they still 99. The school and the culture separate the head from the body. They tell the child to think without hands, to do without head, to listen and not to speak, to understand without joy, to love and to marvel only. To love and to marvel. They tell the child to discover the world already there. And of the 100, there's still 99. They tell the child that work and play, reality and fantasy, science and imagination, sky and earth, reason and dream are things that do not belong together. And thus, they tell the child that the 100 is not there. The child says, no way, the 100 is there. That's available online, The 100 Languages of Children, written by Loris Malaguzzi, founder of the Reggio Emilia approach. And like I said, once we regain control and knowledge of what children's capabilities are and competencies, we can help reshape the framework that we have in place right now to one that is of acknowledgement for their ideas. Thank you, Rena.
That was amazing. In fact, not many of them know about this, the 100 languages of children. There are a few of us who know about it. If we follow each and every word, our education system is completely going to change. We've stopped giving them questions, rather, we are giving them answers. We need to start giving them questions. That is where they are going to grow. Because
Absolutely.
what we have been doing is we have been cutting the flower of creativity from their mind. We've just uprooted it. We've uprooted their creativity. Every child is born with a different skill set. So now, during pandemic, things have really changed. Like it was, it's not normal again, and I don't know how much time it's going to take to be normal. So, what is your opinion about what I have said? Like normalcy, not no no, it's not the new normal, but how are things going to be normal for a child who is yet to come to school but has already started learning online? Because once the child comes to school, it's going to be really difficult because he started learning while he was online. So, what would you like to say about it?
I think we need to look at children's personal, social, and emotional development and how we support that within the classroom once they get back to us. How much screen time has been utilized in, if they've been online, they're so used to it, but how we can switch this narrative around is freedom to play, giving them choice in what they do, give them ownership of the space, in making the environment as a third teacher, really looking at how we can support their needs. They are going to be behind. I was having a conversation the other day and speaking about, the average 4-year-old would normally be at 40 to 60 months emerging or developing, and it's not going to be that way. It may be some children have had access to the internet and they're able to go, but from a practicality day-to-day perspective, I think smaller groups for teaching is a positive. I think keeping a smaller group of children, often here, some are on rotation days, some come in certain days and some don't come in, and they split half the week. Wearing a mask, we could have a whole debate about wearing a mask or not, and the question is, how relevant is this for the spread of infection for our young children? The children are used to seeing people in masks, so I guess this is not deemed a scary aspect now. Now that there's development of new masks and people can, you can get a mask that's see-through and people can see what you're saying a lot more. I think also we often try and overthink. It's going to be scary for them. It's going to be uneasy. I think school can provide a safe haven for our learners, and actually talking to parents about what has their experiences been during this pandemic, checking in with your classes if you know what's going to happen in September, October even. It may be the start of next year now, where within your culture you go back to some kind of attending in person. But really looking at what, my biggest advice is looking at what you can control, and actually being informed that these learners may not be at their developmental stage, and actually finding and nurturing their own personalities as well. Finding out, doing an All About Me, for example, finding out about our children in greater detail, being aware of things that have happened in their family circumstances to support you and your knowledge to educate these children even further. It may be something that you do already, but these suggestions, especially after such a traumatic time, these children have lived
Indeed,
through informed
it has
trauma.
been
For us
exactly.
and for them, how will we align our thoughts? Have they lost relatives? Have they, have they lost near and dear? We are so fortunate that we're able to nurture these relationships with the parents as well as the children that we work with. So reach out, speak, don't preempt, be aware. I guess that's my key message today. Be aware of what is happening, communicate with what's happening at home, and continue that flow of dialogue so that there is an effective communication strategy happening within that environment for the best and the changing needs of these children as we go on.
Definitely. Because right now, the kids, especially the children who are growing up, they need somebody to speak up, because they cannot just hide their feelings, their emotions inside. They've been in over here. The kids haven't gone to school for more than a year. They're all inside. They were happy that things will be changing, but again, we had to take a big U-turn and back home. You
My
wouldn't like,
advice, Rena,
yeah,
I
please.
just want to make a point. I want to make a point on that. Patience, our own expectations and the realities of what are happening in the present moment. Looking at children's, reframing our own mindsets that actually this behavior is a trigger and it's not a personal thing against you. So if your child is experiencing big emotions, talk out. Let them talk about their emotions. Let them find time in the day where you can share together how you are feeling. Emotional literacy, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence starts even with our youngest of toddlers. The process of self-regulation, the executive functioning, the way the brain is in tune. And if you're into the work of Dan Siegel and Mine Kongbayer and many more experts in the field, look at self-regulation and really allowing the process of talking through these emotions with our children lets us be a counselor to their needs. Lets us realize that actually it's okay to cry. It's okay to punch and hit and let it all out. It's better out than in, I always say. What I also say is we look at emotional literacy as a step forward. We need to look at books with our children, such as The Colour Monster. I'll post a link after this chat today. Go and purchase that. Go and purchase books that talk about emotions and feelings, because that's what we need right now. Grab a puppet. A puppet is, a soft toy. Get one out. Role play, talk about emotions. How is this making you feel? Pretend to be grandma or pretend to be uncle, and you have this conversation. Act it out. We need to change this, and the only way this change can happen is if we make a step forward and bring about positive change for these children. Let's reframe this to, we need to talk and we need to share our feelings. We need to allow our children to understand that actually some days we are going to feel a bit irritated, and actually say, it's okay. When you're talking to mum or you're talking to granny, and actually giving each other space as well, and finding a time in a household that's of multi-generational. I remember talking to my own parents about this and realizing that, you know, we're not all meant to be at home at the same time and we're always constantly out, but actually looking at how others are feeling in the present moment. Really, it helps you empathize with one another and really bring about a positive atmosphere within your environment. Over to you, Rena.
I think that is one of the most important things we need to do right now, because where are these kids going to vent out their emotions if we are not going to just give them a listening ear? Because there is so much that they've piled up inside, and that's coming out in the form of different actions. It can be like they're getting aggressive. It's not only about the toddlers or the early years children. It's about the teenagers, about every child that is inside. So you have been dealing with children, right? You have been taking care of them all alone, and you have been getting used to their tantrums, their screams, their shouts, their cries, and side by side, you have been training them, you have been educating them. So,
Rena,
how could you cope up during the worst times? And I know at times you have you really felt like giving up, but you did not. There have been instances when uh, you were not able to understand how things have to be done for the kids, but you still did it because you were working for the betterment of children. So how could you manage, and how could you make things normalize so that they did not feel the bunt of staying inside?
it's been interesting. It's been an interesting 8-9 months working 60 to 70 hours a week, like I said earlier, working for doctors supporting pandemic childcare. And really the big emotions there with, you know, boy 1 and boy 4, and really kind of understanding child development for me. It's kind of brought back the importance of understanding what stage they're at, preempting, talking to them about how they're feeling, checking in with them. You know, what makes you feel sad? It may be that they didn't sleep at night. It may be that, you know, they haven't seen their grandparents for a long time. You know, being aware of what is happening around them, or for me, making sure that I'm aware so that I can use distraction, I can use technique of distraction, and making sure that I'm attuned to what they're interested in. So, for example, boy 1, he's now 17 months. He was fascinated with wheels. So how many different things can I one day sat down and literally drew a wheel in the middle of a piece of paper, and I got his brother to help me. What things can you name different types of wheels for me? And that's also for him as well. He was fascinated with transport. He used to love, you know, planes and cars and movement. He had a scooter that he used to love going on, a skateboard, and it would be, how can we utilize this within the home setting? What different things have wheels around the house? You know, if they've got a backyard, what things have wheels in the back garden? What things have, we can develop skills of physics through force and motion. And I did say physics, yes. Gravity, talking about what happens. Learning evolves through those children's interests. And often, I think my biggest lesson that I took out of pandemic childcare, that what I was talking is, learning can happen so organically. Learning is not pre-described. And actually, I often think about this, and I've quoted this many times before. Play cannot be play cannot be given a definition, only that it is what the child gives its own purpose to be. And actually, often as educators, we lose the track of what play is. Play is the way, play is the force, play is the work of children. And actually, they give it their own purpose of how we move things forward. I remember one day we were outside. I got them outside most days during the pandemic, and the parks were shut. The only place that we could really go was a local recreation area, and we got to see the dogs of the area, and we got to know the names of the people with the dogs. And it turned out a big story that happened. The boy 4 told me that his grandparents had dogs. They had rescue dogs in Greece, and his grandfather, his papu, would feed these dogs. And actually it fed into that interest and dialogue as an ongoing one of relevance. Looking at relevance, looking at purpose, looking at this organic learning that is happening. Like I said, the conversations evolved through him experiencing something that, we may have not done before, but because we slowed the learning down to the pace of him, I was able to meet him where he was at in the present moment and nurture his interest, for that is more of value than anything else. And pure magic evolved in that very moment. Those words, the literacy, the mathematics, the skills, they just come out organically. They happen, and pure magic happens when you see learning happening and you act as a facilitator to that. I want to say a point here. Observe more, do less. Observe more, do less. To quote, and I always quote this person, Magda Gerber, a work of a pedagogue in Hungary, who looked at developmental studies of young babies. But maybe we should take that into our work with young children. And I know for sure that was do less, but learn about the power of observation. Look in it with a clear lens of what children can do, not what they can't.
Exactly. We need to concentrate on what are their strengths rather than their weaknesses. Once we concentrate on the strengths, the weaknesses can ultimately be taken care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Rob, for taking out time for this, because we have been planning it since quite some time. And today we got the opportunity to do it, because I had already told you that this weekend we are going to do it, and we did it today. Thank you so
We
much for
did.
taking time. Thank you so much.
Namaste, Namaste,
Take
Rina.
care.
Thank you very much,
You're
listeners, for tuning in. And Rina, thank you for all you do for the education community, not just in India, but around the world, in spreading your positive message. Sending you my blessings, my dear, this day, and thank you very much for allowing me to be on here with you. God bless you all and your people, and I hope to be a part of many collaborations in the future. Have a fantastic evening.
Thank you. You too have a fantastic evening. Thank you. So here we end our session for today. Thank you. And tomorrow we might not be on air, but definitely in case if we are, you'll get the message by morning. Thank you so much and good night.